It was a Friday afternoon in a bustling city in Nigeria. Mr. Philip, a hard-working businessman, was engrossed in his work, unaware of the impending crisis brewing at home. You see, Philip and his wife, Cassandra, had been married for 5 good years, but they had not been blessed with a child. The couple had prayed and begged God for a child, and after much perseverance, their prayers was answered. They welcomed their daughter, Zara, into the world, and their lives were filled with immense joy. On this particular Friday, Philip was supposed to pick up Zara from school, and it was raining cats and dogs, but as the workday dragged on, he became increasingly distracted. I will just finish this one more task, and then I will head out to pick my daughter from school, he told himself, thinking that before he was ready, it should have stopped raining, unaware of the worry he was causing his wife at home. Back at the school, it's 3 p.m. already. Zara waited patiently as other children were picked up by their parents. It was raining seriously as the students huddled outside their classrooms as they got picked up one after the other. Where are Mama and Papa now? She wondered, her small brow squeezed with concern. She was so tired and hungry. She had not eaten all day because Mommy packed spaghetti and it looks like worm to her. As the school emptied, she started pondering. Maybe I will just walk home, she said to herself, her excitement at the prospect of an adventure of walking in the rain overriding her worries. Meanwhile, Cassandra grew increasingly anxious. Philip and Zara should have been back by now, she said. She looked outside as the rain poured. She fretted, picking up her phone to call her husband. Hello, my love. Where are you and Zara? Philip's heart sank as he realized his mistake. Oh no, I completely forgot to pick up Zara. I'm so sorry, my dear. Can you please go get her? Cassandra didn't hesitate. Of course, I'll be on my way. Take it easy with work, okay? Love you. Bye, she said, picking up her handbag and umbrella, rushing out the door. As Cassandra made her way to the bus stop in the rain, she was able to get a bus to the school. She was already an hour late, and it would take her another 45 minutes to get to the school. But then, she encountered the notorious city traffic, something that is more serious when it is raining. Frustrated, she decided to get off the bus and to take a bike instead, seeing that it was now drizzling, because the bikes always manage to maneuver traffic better. I need to get to Zara as soon as possible, she muttered. She rushed out of the bus to look for a bike, holding up her umbrella. She flagged down an aboki, but then she realized that she left her bag in the bus. She told the aboki to go as she contemplated on how she was going to find the bus in the traffic and in the rain, because her phone was in that bag. If she misplaces the bag, how would she call her husband and even pay the bike man, she thought. Meanwhile, at the school, it's 5 p.m. already. Zara at this moment decided to make her way home in the drizzling rain. Her eyes fixed on a hot puff-puff vendor across the street. The hunger intensified in her belly. I want to buy puff-puff, she said, darting across the road without looking both ways. A passerby screamed, "Stop!" But it was too late. Suddenly, a speeding car came hurtling towards her, and Zara was struck, her small body crumpling to the ground. The driver, a young man who was engrossed in his phone, did not notice the child until he heard the scream from the passerby. He immediately braked, but it was too late. He came out of his car and rushed to Zara's aid. "No, I've hit a child," he cried, scooping up the unconscious child and placing her in the back seat of his car, and then sped off. Cassandra, on the other hand, unaware of the tragedy that had befallen her daughter, continued her frantic search for the bus she had left her bag. As it continued to drizzle, "I need to find that bus," she said, her voice trembling with worry, but unable to find it. She then decided to run to the school, since it was not too far again. By the time Cassandra reached the school, she was wet. She was sweating profusely and was out of breath from running. The school looked very silent and empty, but the gate was still open as she prayed with all her might to see her daughter in the school premises. But it was empty and Zara was nowhere to be found. She decided to walk back out of the school gate when she saw the school principal coming out with the gate key. Then it had stopped raining. She saw Cassandra and looked at her in surprise. "Ah, Mrs. Cassandra, how are you? What are you doing here? And why are you sweating so much?" she asked. Cassandra tried to force a smile. "I am fine. Please, I just came in now very late to pick my daughter, but she is not inside the school. Do you know where she is?" "Your daughter? It's Friday, and your husband usually picks her up. Maybe you should call him." "My husband cannot pick her up and still ask me to come pick her up. I know him too well," Cassandra replied. "Yes, I am sure. But what if he managed to pick her up while you were still stuck in traffic? Please, just call him." Cassandra sighed and explained that she had lost her bag in the bus. The principal nodded in understanding, then reached out into her own bag and brought out her phone, which she gave to Cassandra, who immediately dialed Philip's number. Mr. Sam came into the city from his city for a business trip. He was late for the meeting as he tried to navigate the city road while he spoke on the phone with his investor. He was too caught up in the conversation that he did not notice a child crossing the road, and before he could hit his brakes, he had knocked the child down. Very worried, he drove on top speed to the nearest hospital according to the map. He made it to the hospital as he carried out the child. The nurses proceeded to take the child from him as they rushed her into the emergency room. Sam began to pace left and right in the waiting room, so worried and scared for the child's life and for his as well, because how will he explain that he knocked down and killed a child? How? Few hours later, the doctor came out looking very sad. He took a deep breath. "I'm so sorry, sir. I have bad news," he said. "She lost a lot of blood, and she also had internal bleeding in her brain in a very delicate spot, and we need to operate on her immediately, or else she will die. The drugs and the injection I have given her would not handle it for long." Mr. Sam nodded. "Then let's take her in. I have the money to pay for the procedure," he said. The doctor looked more distressed. "Sir, we do not have the equipment to handle this type of surgery here. I can write a note that you can take with you to any hospital you want to take her to, and she would be attended to urgently," the doctor said. Sam was confused because he has no idea what hospital to take her to that would have the right equipment, since he is not from the city. But he knew that his family hospital is very capable of handling major surgeries like this. Sir, will it be okay for me to travel with her on a 5-hour journey so she can get treated in a specialist hospital? Mr. Sam asked, and the doctor nodded. He then proceeded to give him the notes and then gave the girl more injections to keep her safe. Mr. Sam immediately left with her in his car as he sped off to his city. Back at the school, Cassandra called her husband, who maintained that he had not picked up Zara, and he could not understand what his wife was telling him on the phone, that she could not find Zara. He hung up the call after promising to come there immediately. Tears began to stream down Cassandra's face as she stood there unsure of where her only child was. The principal started sweating profusely in the cold weather. When the gravity of the situation hit her, she immediately called Zara's class teacher, who rushed down to the school. She also did not know where Zara was. It was at that point that Philip rushed in, driving recklessly. He rushed to his wife and held her. She cried in distress. They were in that position as the principal looked at them in pity, knowing how long it took them to have that child. She too felt so sad and tears almost left her eyes. It was at that point that her phone rang. Then she picked it up. "Hello, Madam Principal. One of your pupils was just involved in a fatal accident and had been rushed to the hospital," the caller said. Hearing this, the principal moved away from them to a quieter corner and she asked the person to describe the child, which fitted Zara's description perfectly. She dropped the call as she looked at Mr. Philip and his wife, not knowing how they would feel if they found out that their only child was involved in a ghastly accident and that nobody knows where the driver of the car took her to. But on the other hand, she knew she had to tell them. She came to them with a very sad face. "Mr. and Mrs. Philip, I just got a call that your daughter was involved in a ghastly motor accident," she said. Their eyes widened. "Accident? When? So where is she?" they asked in unison. "That is the issue. Nobody knows where the driver of the car took her to." The principal spoke in pain herself. The couple shook their head in confusion as they made their way to their car. The principal and the teachers quickly followed them as they jumped into Mr. Philip's car, who drove off towards the nearest hospital. As they got to the nearest hospital, they all filed out of the car and rushed into the hospital. Mr. Philip went straight to the nurse at the reception and asked if a child in such school uniform was brought in. The nurse checked their record and told them that no child of such description was brought here. So they moved to the next hospital. This hospital was quite big. They also spoke to the medical receptionist, who confirmed that a child fitting to that description was brought in. They all looked relieved. She told them to wait while she goes to look for the ward the child was placed. While they were waiting at the waiting room, the doctor came out with a medical receptionist behind him. He looked worried. "You are the parents of the girl?" he asked them. "Yes, doctor. Can we see our daughter now, please?" they asked anxiously. He shook his head. "Well, she is not here right now. She sustained an internal bleeding in her brain, and we do not have the right equipment to operate on her. So the man who brought her here took her with him to his city," the doctor replied. It was as if he hit them with something, and they looked at each other in shock. Meanwhile, Mr. Sam was driving at top speed to his city. 2 hours into the drive, he was stopped by the police and he showed them the note from the doctor instructing him to take the girl to a hospital that has the right equipment for her brain surgery, and they let him pass. Immediately he got to the hospital, his family doctor and nurses took over. The surgeon was invited. At that moment, the surgeon understood why he had been unable to leave the hospital since his last surgery ended. It was because of this child. They entered into the theater to operate on her after Mr. Sam paid the money required. Mr. Sam waited outside the theater room pacing, totally confused as his phone started ringing non-stop. It has been ringing since he was leaving the little girl's city. As he picked up his phone to answer the call, it was his wife, Sarah. "Honey, I have been calling you. Why have you not been picking up my calls?" she asked him immediately he picked up the phone. He sighed and then told her everything that has been happening. She then asked the hospital he was in, and she rushed over to be with him. Mr. Sam and Sarah were outside the theater room waiting when the surgeon came out smiling. They rushed towards him. "Is she okay?" Sarah asked the surgeon. He smiled and said, "Yes, by God's grace. She is out of harm's way for now, but she needs lots of rest. But there is an issue though. She has partial amnesia, meaning some of her memories will be missing when she wakes up. Don't worry, it's just temporary. But one thing she needs now is your love and care." The doctor finished, and they nodded. "But can we see her?" Sam asked, and the doctor nodded. "Just make sure not to wake her up with noise. She needs all the rest she can get." And then he left them. As they entered into the ward where the child was, and Sarah saw her hooked onto different machines, she started sobbing uncontrollably as her past flashed before her eyes. Cassandra fainted after hearing that her daughter is nowhere to be found. She was quickly rushed into a room and revived. When she woke up, she started crying and praying, "God, please save my own child. You know how long it took me before you gave me this child. Please help me." Philip consoled her as the principal and the teacher stood silently in one corner in shock due to the issue at hand. After she stopped crying, the couples decided to head home to wait for news. They left the principal and the teacher, but before they left, the principal once again apologized to them and urged them not to take out their anger on the school, reassuring them that she and her teachers would lend their hands to find Zara. Mr. Philip just left, knowing that indeed there was no use lashing out on their school. He took his wife home. When they arrived, he helped her upstairs and they sat in silence as the day's event washed over them. Philip started making calls and started creating awareness about the missing daughter of his. He was so lost in the calls that he did not notice his wife leave his side. He immediately rushed after her, alarmed, afraid to leave her alone, knowing how vulnerable she was at that point. He followed her to their daughter's room as his wife stood in front of Zara's wardrobe, just staring at her clothes as tears poured out from her eyes. She began to silently pray in tongues as she walked round her room, touching her things and declaring her safety. "Lord, you said I would not bury my young, so nothing would happen to my child, Lord. I call upon the host of angels to go over to wherever she is now and let your healing flow through her body. She finally knelt down in front of their family praying altar as she rounded up the prayer. In Jesus' powerful name I have prayed. And Philip, who was already kneeling in front of their family altar, answered, Amen and Amen. As he helped her up, taking her to the bedroom, where he proceeded to help her shower, then put her to bed as he stood watching her sleep, exhausted and still in tears even in her sleep. Sarah cried her eyes out. Sam led her away from the room in order not to wake up the little girl, because they were instructed not to wake up the girl or disturb her rest. But deep down he knew where the tears of his wife was coming from, and he too felt a wave of sadness. Years earlier, when they were newly wedded, his wife had gotten pregnant with their first child. As excitement spread through their home, as she showed him the beautiful double lines of the test strip, it was not long when she lost that baby. And after a few months again, she took in. And this time she tried to be very careful. She stayed away from anything that would stress her, heeding the instructions of the doctors. And as God would have it, she gave birth to a beautiful baby girl. And they were overjoyed. Their joy was short-lived, as the doctor told them that Sarah could not conceive again due to a complication. They took the news rather well, because they already had their bundle of joy and did not intend on having many children. They named her Sia, and she grew into a very inquisitive and intelligent child, loved by all. Then she started falling ill often, of which they would take her to the hospital for treatment. She would then get better and she would get sick again. This happened twice, and suddenly her head began to get bigger and bigger, and she began to lose weight. She became a shadow of her own self. They then decided to take her to a specialist hospital, and the doctor there examined her accordingly. I am very sorry, the doctor said. Your child had brain tumor. This was shocking to both parents. We would have been able to help her, but the tumor has spread over 90% of her brain and her heart. I would advise you go home and spend the little time you have with her. They both wept, remembering that Sarah could not try for another child. After the tears, they put themselves together and went to see their child, their daughter. She looked so frail, hooked up to several machines. She opened her eyes slightly and smiled. They smiled back at her, and with that smile, she faded out of this world, back to heaven as an angel. So seeing this girl strapped up on these machines reminded Sarah of her daughter Sia. Sam consoled her, whispering lovingly to her. After she had calmed down, they went back to the room, where they both held a vigil in another bed in the same room where the girl was, anxiously waiting for her to open her eyes. Sarah kept staring lovingly at the girl, totally in love with her. Sam noticed, but he shook it off as he tried to tie up loose ends on the phone with one of his clients. When he was done, he checked the time and saw that it was 1 a.m. already. Honey, he said, don't you think you should head home and rest? Since you are traveling to Dubai this afternoon, he asked. And she shook her head and checked her watch. I think you already know I won't be able to go off on a trip with this child in this state? I am calling off the trip, Sarah responded. Sam nodded his head as he started worrying about how he would be able to take the little girl back to her parents, remembering that she would most likely not remember where she is and who she is because of the temporary memory loss. And then he remembered the uniform she was wearing, and he said, tomorrow I would have to find a way to contact her school, he said as he looked at the girl and noticed that she was just wearing a hospital gown and not her school uniform. I would have to ask the nurses for her uniform so I can reach out to her school. They both fell asleep with Sarah's head on his shoulders. The light of dawn brightened the dark room and they both woke up. Sam quickly rushed off to speak to a nurse to ask for the uniform. Sarah went to the little girl, brushing off hair from the girl's unconscious face. Mr. Sam was given the uniform, which he placed neatly in front of his car seat before heading back inside the hospital. The plan was for him to wait for his wife to go home, and then he would head off to look for the school of the girl using the name on her uniform. He waited as his wife left the hospital and made her way home to rest. Then he tipped the nurse and asked the nurse to take good care of the little girl as he too rushed out of the hospital. But when he got to the car, he was shocked to find out that he had 4 flat tires, which greatly surprised him because he didn't see any flat tires when he came out that morning. At Mr. Phillips' residence, after the extreme rough night they had, Mr. Philip woke up and then his phone began to ring. He picked up to find the principal calling again to apologize for what happened and reassuring him that Mr. Philip came back and the door was wide open. He stepped into the house, remembering that he told his wife to stay indoors and lock the door. That was when he saw the kitchen knife on the living room floor, close to his wife's wedding ring. Meanwhile, Mr. Sam had only 1 spare tire left in his car, so he called a vulcanizer to help him fix the remaining tires, and he then bought 3 more, and it took 1 hour for it to be fixed. All new and ready. Mr. Sam got into his car and drove 5 hours into the city, where he knocked out the girl. When he looked towards the front seat to get the name of the school from the uniform he laid there, but there was nothing there. I kept this uniform here now. Abi, did it fall down when the vulcanizer was working on my tires? He parked somewhere enclosed, got down from the car and searched everywhere, but he could not find the uniform. Who do you think took the uniform? Do you think it was Sarah? Or was it the vulcanizer? What could be her ulterior motive for doing that? And has something happened to Cassandra? Find out in the next episode of this story. Thank you so much for watching.
Thank you so much for watching this video. If you love this video, I'm very certain that you would like this other one. A friend on the other hand begging this friend to sleep with his wife. Get to know what happened at the end. Thank you.